In this video, I'm going to show you the exact workflow on how to provision and configure a Windows server, deploy SolarWinds Observability so you can see problems before they become outages in your IT infrastructure. By the way, if this is your first time here, my name is Leo. I'm an IT operations specialist, and on this channel, we break down system administration, monitoring, and automation the real way it is done in production environments. All our virtualization will be done on VMware ESXi, and as you can see on my screen, I'm going to log into my VMware ESXi. We'll be doing our deployment of all our servers, but today we will be deploying a Windows server, and on this Windows server we will be deploying SolarWinds Observability self-hosted for monitoring of our IT infrastructure, which we are going to be building over time. So just for like an example, let's say after the video of today we deploy another Windows server, we are going to demonstrate how we monitor our IT infrastructure using SolarWinds Observability self-hosted as we build on it incrementally. So like you can see, this is my VMware ESXi installed, and we have ESXi version 8 installed. Please just drop a comment if you want a video on how I installed the ESXi version 8. You can just drop a comment on the comment section. If we can go to the virtual machine section, as you can see, I have several virtual machines installed already. I have a Windows server, I have Ubuntu Linux, I also have Oracle Linux installed, I also have Red Hat Linux installed. So with that said, on our ESXi, we are going to set up a brand new Windows server. That's going to be a Windows Server 2022. You can get the ISO from the Microsoft downloads page, or you can check out the link in the description below. So now to set up a brand new Windows server, we can click on create/register virtual machine. So we have these options here: create a new virtual machine, deploy virtual machine from an OVF or an OVU file, register an existing virtual machine. So we are going to go with create a new virtual machine, and if we click on that and we click on next, so we'll have this option where we can give our virtual machine a name. Let's be mindful, the name of the virtual machine won't be the name of the Windows server that will be deployed. So I think that's how it works with VMware ESXi, and this name here does not affect or does not impact the name of the Windows server which we are going to deploy. So on the ESXi, I already have the Windows Server 2022 ISO file mounted into my ESXi. Let me just go back. If I can just go back and go to my data store, that is my storage, and I do data store browser, I'm going to see the ISO file. So I created a folder on the data store browser and I added the ISO file. So after you've downloaded the ISO file, you can just click on upload and you upload it to the VMware ESXi. So we are not going to go through that step anymore, and we go back to virtual machines, create/register a new virtual machine, create a new virtual machine. We click on next, and like I mentioned, the name of the virtual machine on the ESXi does not impact the actual Windows server name that will be deployed. So on this one, we are just going to label it as SolarWinds VM. SolarWinds VM, and the guest OS family will be Windows, and the guest OS version will be Windows Server 2022. Okay, right now we can click on next. So we have only one data store and we have only one storage, that is data store 1. So we are going to leave it on the existing data store. You can check if you need settings for persistent memory, and we are going to leave it on data store 1, and we click on next. So we can see we need to adjust the disk here. Let's give it a disk size of about 40 gigs, and we'll give the memory in gigabytes. So we'll give SolarWinds about 16 gig of memory, and the CPU will give it 4-core CPU. So guys, before you give your production server, before you assign system requirements to your production server, you will need to check SolarWinds platform requirements for Windows servers, and you are going to know the amount of CPU, memory, and disk space you need to give to your Windows servers, which you are going to be using in your production environment. So for this lab experiment, we are just going to give these settings because I'm familiar with these for a lab environment, and you can give more and you can give less, but you need to be mindful of the system requirement, especially when you are deploying in production. So I think for these, the 4 CPU is okay, 16 gig of memory is alright, 40 gig of hard disk is okay for this production, or for this test environment we are trying to deploy. So you can scroll down and check the other settings if you want. Well, I think normally we can just leave it on the default, and we click next. So you have everything here listed to you. You can just review. If you want to make any changes, you can just click on back, and you go back and do the changes that you need to do. Yes, so I think at this point we are done creating the virtual machine. Oh guys, we forgot one thing. We haven't assigned the Windows 2022 ISO to this virtual machine we are trying to create. Right, like I mentioned, you can go back and do the changes that you want to do. So we can click on back. When you click on back, you scroll down to where we have CD/DVD drive 1, right? So this is where you are going to assign the Windows ISO. So when you click on hard disks, when you click on the drop down, you are going to see hard disk data store ISO. We select data store ISO file. So we go to our data store where we have uploaded our ISO file. When you click on it, you see your ISO file. You select the ISO file. You click on select. So right now we have everything ready for the virtual machine, and we can just click on next and we do finish. So when you click on finish, it will bring you back to the virtual machines page. So on the virtual machine page, you are going to see the new virtual machine we created. So you can see it here, Windows. We can see it here, SolarWinds VM, and you can select the VM and you click on power on. So this is going to start the virtual machine, and it's going to start the Windows Server 2022 installation procedure. So this is where the real Windows Server deployment actually begins. So we can just go to the interface for this by just clicking on the UI. So this will open up this page, and we can see, let's just maximize one. And you can see it's trying to load now the Windows ISO. And yeah, so now we are officially starting the Windows Server 2022 deployment. And here we have a few settings. You can change the language to your preference if you want, and we are just going to leave it on English, and we click on next. So we'll have install now and click on install now. So it says setting is starting. We are going to wait for a bit. Okay, so we have this option. This is very important, and you see you have 4 options here to deploy: Windows Server 2022 Standard Edition, Windows Server 2022 Standard Evaluation, and you see desktop experience. We are going to go with desktop experience. If you go with the first option, it's going to give you a command line Windows installation, so you don't have any user interface to interact with, and that could be a little bit more challenging. So that means any software installation will be via the command line. So yeah, based on my experience, I've seen a couple of customers, or I've seen a couple of IT professionals using this, but you need to be very strong, or you need to have a good background in terms of Windows terminal, because everything will be Windows terminal: installation, hosting of the files, and everything. So we are going to go with desktop experience for the standard evaluation. We are not using the data center evaluation. So we'll click on next, and you can just accept the license agreement. Yes, we're ready. And we have which type of installation do you want. You have the upgrade, install Microsoft Server operating system settings and everything. So we don't want that first option. It might take a little bit of more time. We are going to go with the custom option. So we've allocated 40 gig of space, that's the hard drive, and we can just click on next because we do not want to partition that. So you see, copy Microsoft operating system files, and it's going to take some time to get the files ready, and after getting the files ready, it's going to start installing features, installing updates, and after that we have our brand new Windows Server 2022 installed. So guys, I'll just take a coffee and I'll be back. We can see now we have to provide credentials for the local administrator user, which we are going to initially use to log into the Windows Server we have installed before doing further user creation if we want. And I'm just going to give it a password. I'm going to repeat that below here. Alright, so you can see that is done. We can click on finish. So we do have our Windows Server. I'm just going to minimize this, and I'm going to try to get the command to open up the UI so we can log in with the administrator. And you see it's requesting the command control alternate plus delete to unlock the device or to unlock the Windows Server. We are going to go to guest OS, send keys. We have control alternate delete. Now we have to provide the credentials for the administrator account so we can have access into our brand new Windows Server we created. Alright, so that's how you can set up a Windows Server on ESXi. And it says, do you want to allow your PC to be discoverable by other devices, by other PCs and devices on this network? Of course, that's what we want, because you're working with the local environment, and you have to be able to open up visibility to other devices you'll be further installing or configuring to monitor. For example, if we create another Windows server and we want to monitor another Windows server from this server where we have installed our SolarWinds Observability self-hosted, we need that Windows server to be able to identify that this server is existing. So if we block access to this server, then you are not able to access any other server out of this server. So we are going to go with yes. And we can see the first dashboard that comes up is the server manager, and this is where you do most of your roles and features configurations in Windows Server. So for now, there are two settings we'll be looking into. Firstly, we need to set a static IP because our SolarWinds Orion applications need to be working with a static IP address. And secondly, we are going to disable Windows Firewall because we want to avoid the stress of opening ports. But this is just for lab testing. So in your production environment, you take sole responsibility of opening all required ports. So like again, for you to know all the required ports you need for your SolarWinds installation, so you have to check the SolarWinds documentation, which I'm going to include in the video description. And from there you can review the system requirements, and you can review the port requirements as well. So you have to open all these ports on your firewall. But for our lab environment or for testing purposes, we are going to disable Windows Firewall. So this is to allow any incoming or outgoing traffic from the server. So I'm going to close Windows Server Manager, and I'm going to go to the network adapter, change adapter options. So I'm just going to maximize this and see I get that is visible somehow now. We go to properties and we go to Internet Protocol version 4, click on properties. So you see it says obtain an IP address automatically. So we don't want this for a SolarWinds host. A SolarWinds host needs to have a static IP address. So we'll give it a static IP address, and I haven't really selected a specific IP, but I know a range of IP address in my lab environment. So I'm going to give it 192.168.1.1. Let's say .1.1.1, yeah. And that will be the subnet 255.255. And the gateway would be 192.168.1.1. And preferred DNS. If you have any custom DNS, then you can put in the IP address of the DNS here. And if you do not have any custom DNS, you can just leave it. If you don't have any custom DNS, then you can use the default gateway. That's your network, your local network, and your lab network. You use the default gateway of your lab network as your custom DNS. And for example, if you have a router you are using for your local network to connect to your devices, which they can see each other through the router, you can use the default gateway for the router as the preferred DNS. For example, mine will be 192.168.1.1, but I have a custom DNS, so I'm going to put in the custom DNS. So in upcoming videos, I'm going to show you how you can set up your own custom DNS, a Windows DNS, for example, how you can set it up and how you can get your devices to communicate with your DNS server. So we'll see, and also how to create DNS records. So my custom DNS is 192.168.1.151. Yeah, and now click on OK. I'll click on close, and you see it will take some time, and now it's identified on the network. So I'll close this, so you can refresh. You don't need to restart the Windows server for any reason, and I can test ping to other devices on my network. For example, if I open up CMD and I can do ping to one of my devices, I do have 192.168.1.162. It works. So this is my EXI. It's supposed to work. Let me test another device, and let me see. Let me check. Let me check the IP of any device or one of my devices. Okay, I have 192.168.1.179. So I'm able to reach some external devices, and I can see the device is reachable on my network. And the next thing we need to do now is to close our firewall, so we do not have any port access issues. So we are going to close our domain firewall, and we go to our private network. We are going to close that too, and we go to our public network. We are going to close that too. So, and again, this is just for testing purposes, or this is just for lab experiment. Do not do this on production, please. Please do not do this on production. So on production, either you have a network engineer that's going to open up all the ports via on the firewall, or you can do that by yourself and set up your Windows server, get all port requirements from SolarWinds. You can even contact SolarWinds support team if you have valid SolarWinds maintenance license. You can contact the SolarWinds support team, and they can easily create a documentation for you where they are going to list all port requirements and forward it to you. So but for our lab testing, we are just going to shut down our firewall. So now we have our full Windows 2022 server installation and completed, and the next thing we need to do before I forget is to assign a name for the Windows server. So currently we do have a name for the server already, and that's the default name that was automatically given to the server during the installation. So we can change that after the installation, and we can go to, so we can come here, right click on the Windows icon, and go to system. So when you go to system, you scroll down, you see this option, rename this PC. We are going to rename this PC. The default name that was given is Win-C44J-G-A-Q-O-B-T-G, and we are going to rename that to SolarWinds Lab. We are going to rename that to SolarWinds Lab. And after doing that, you click on next, then you have the option to restart. Now, yes, I will advise that you restart the server immediately after renaming the PC. So we have to restart the server, and in a few minutes that will be done. We can proceed now with our SolarWinds platform installation. Alright, so the restart is done. You can see that was very quick, right? And we can just go back, try to get commands to alternate, delete. So we can unlock the server, guest OS, same keys, control alternate delete, and we can put in our credentials. Okay, that is done. I'll maximize this one more time for your view. Okay, like I mentioned, you will always have the server manager opens each time you log into your Windows server. So guys, right now we have everything ready on this server for installation. So the next thing we'll do is to get the SolarWinds Observability self-hosted ISO file from the SolarWinds website. I'm going to attach a link in the description below so you can check out from there where you can download the ISO file. So I already have the ISO file downloaded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the ISO file into my brand new Windows 2022 server install, and after that I'm going to begin the procedure. Alright, see you guys in a bit. Okay, so now we have the installer copied over to our newly installed Windows server, like you can see on the screen here. So you can either extract the ISO, or you can mount the ISO file which you download from the SolarWinds website. So what I've done is I've extracted the ISO, and when you open up the folder, you are going to see this is the SolarWinds offline installer. So SolarWinds package comes in two forms. SolarWinds package comes in two forms. So you have the online installer and you have the offline installer. So the online installer is usually just an installer or an application file of about 100 to 200 MBs, but the offline installer comes in about 3 to 4 gigs. So we have the offline installer, it's about 4 gigs and above, and you can see this is how it looks like, and you have a sub installer folder that has multiple installation applications in it. So we'll just go back here. You see what we have here is a SolarWinds.installer. So we are going to run the SolarWinds.installer. The SolarWinds.installer will take care of any additional installation, and it will reference any additional installation files from the sub installers. So what will happen is, now we have the SolarWinds offline installer copied over into the server. So we are going to run the SolarWinds.installer from the offline installer. So you right click on it and you click on run as administrator. So you wait for it to load. It's going to bring up a user interface for the installation. So you have to go through the wizard to start the installer. So alright, so right now we have the installer that is loading up, and yeah, we should know that SolarWinds also depends on some applications installed or some features installed on the Windows server. For example, the SolarWinds application requires .NET 4.8. So you can manually install .NET on the Windows server which we just installed, or you can just leave this for the SolarWinds application to take care of it. So SolarWinds installer will detect if you have .NET or not. If there is .NET, it's going to proceed, but if there is no .NET, it's going to install the required .NET based on the version that you are installing. So for latest or updated versions like 2025 and above, it's going to install .NET 4.8 on the Windows server. So we now have the SolarWinds installer open up, and this is the SolarWinds installation wizard. So you can click on start to start the installation. So you have two options you have here as the installation type. So you have standard platform or scalability add-ons. So standard platform is the main SolarWinds application. So this is, if you are installing SolarWinds for the first time, you have to 100% install by the standard platform. And for example, if you want more pulling power into your SolarWinds environment, you have to install additional engines like additional polling engine or high availability, then you are going to use the scalability add-on options. So the scalability is just like an additional server to support your main current production server or your main current test server. So the standard platform will be for the main server, right? And we are going to, since we are installing for the first time, we are going to install the standard platform, and we select standard platform and click on next. Or we can just go one step back and we check the requirements here. So you can check the requirements. You see it says require SQL Server or SQL Server Express, right? So either you can use a SQL Server standard version or you can use a SQL Server Express. But you should know that SQL Server Express is limited, and you can use SQL Server Express for test environment. But for this session, we are going to use a SQL Server standard, and which we have previously installed before this session or before this video, and we are going to see how to connect to our existing SQL Server. So we need to make sure that the SQL Server is reachable from this server, and we are going to see that later on. So we select standard platform, we go next. You need to accept the license agreement. You go next. If you want to read it, you can read it. So now the installation options for the SQL Server. So if you have a standard SQL Server, you can select the first option, use SQL Server. But if you do not have a SQL Server, like for testing purposes, you can install SQL Server Express. If you select this option, the second option, the installation is going to automatically install a SQL Server Express for you. But the one thing is, you won't have access to the SQL Server Express database. So it will be strictly used for SolarWinds, and you can do all your manipulation and changes from the user interface. So you won't have much flexibility as a SQL Server standard, which you are going to install separately from the application. So the SolarWinds application is going to install SQL Server Express for you if you select the second option. And if you're experimenting this on a lab environment, you can go with this option if you have limited resources. But if you have resources where you can set up a separate SQL server, I recommend you set up a separate SQL server. And of course, for production environments, you are going to use a separate SQL server. So you can use SQL Express for production environments. It's going to be limited, and let's say after a few weeks of pulling, your monitoring won't be as flexible as it's supposed to be, or it won't be as reliable as you might need. So we are going to use the SQL Server standard. We select the first option, and you can change the destination folder. Like you can see, it's installed on the C drive, program files, SolarWinds Orion. So you can change if you have another drive. Let's say you want to install SolarWinds on the D drive. You can browse, select the D drive, and you proceed with the installation. But if you've installed SolarWinds and you want to later on change the installation drive, you have to uninstall the application and reinstall. Use the same procedure or the same steps to update the installation drive. We'll see that in the future, where we are going to uninstall and reinstall a SolarWinds application, where you'll be assured that your configurations and everything will stay the same, and you won't need to redo all your configurations, because all the SolarWinds configurations will be stored on your database. So we'll demonstrate how you can uninstall, safely create backups of your database, reconnect to the previous database you had before the uninstallation. So for now, we are going to leave this installation on the default folder, and we click on next. So this will kind of test the environment, check the server requirements if it meets, and also check if you have any applications up and running that's not supposed to. It's going to instruct you to close it. And after this, you have the option to install or to officially start the installation of the SolarWinds application. So like we can see here, we have no warning check on our environment because like we remember we gave this a 16 gig of memory and 4 CPUs, and this is enough, or this is quite good resources for the SolarWinds installation version 2025. So you have these two options here to accept. You have to click on the radio buttons which says my SQL server is 2016 SP1 or newer. So the required SQL server version has to be 2016 SP1. That is the minimum requirement. So if you have that, you can confirm, and you've reviewed security recommendations, you can confirm, and now you will have the option to install. You can now click on install. So the installation depends on the system requirements, and in such a way that the installation will be fast if your system has good memory and CPU, but it might take a longer time for your installation if you have a lesser amount of CPU or memory. So we know it's a normal installation. Like you can see, the installation has started. So firstly, we'll copy over the files, and you now see installing SolarWinds Platform 2025.4. So this might take about 20 to 30 minutes depending on your system requirements or system resources as well. So let's just hold on for a bit and wait for the installation to complete. So after the installation, we have to run the configuration wizard. The configuration wizard is where all the magic happens. So it connects the application or the application server to a database, and it does all the configurations, website configurations, creation of database tables, and making sure all your default settings for SolarWinds are available. And when the configuration is complete, or the configuration wizard is complete, we can now have access to our SolarWinds platform web console. Yes, we have the configuration wizard. It says the SolarWinds platform configuration wizard has detected that the SolarWinds Internet Information Service, that is the IIS, which is required, is not currently being installed on the server. Yes, that is true. So the IIS is a very important component of the SolarWinds day-to-day running on the host server. So in this scenario, SolarWinds the installation also automatically handles the installation of IIS on the server. So the IIS is going to be hosting the website for the SolarWinds, which is commonly known as the SolarWinds web console. So the IIS on the server is going to host the SolarWinds web console, and without the IIS, we won't be able to run the user interface for the SolarWinds application. So this prerequisite could be installed by the SolarWinds configuration wizard, and we'll click on yes to do that. So it'll take a little bit of time to install the IIS components. So the IIS version will be IIS 8 version 8, and all its components will be installed. So once all the IIS components are installed, then we are going to now fully start with the configuration wizard, and we will run the configuration wizard and connect it to our existing database. So I'll just check my database and try to power it on and see. Okay, so we now have configuration wizard loading. Okay, so now you can click on next. You click on next, and you will have the next view that will show us. Okay, it says not responding. It will take some time. Okay, so now you see database settings. You can now here you can provide details of your SQL server, and you provide authentication if you're using Windows authentication or if you're using a SQL Server authentication. So now I will just verify details for my SQL Server and also make sure my SQL Server is powered on. Okay, so I have verified that my SQL Server is up and running, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test connectivity to my SQL Server. I'm going to use CMD and I'll do a ping. A simple ping is good to SolarWinds DB server 01. So that is the name of my DB server, and you can see we have SolarWinds DB server. The ping is successful, and the resolving IP address is 192.168.1.167. So, and we have our credentials ready, and what we are going to do now, we are going to proceed with the configuration wizard. So you can either enter the name of the SQL server on this page, or you can enter the IP address, right, of the SQL server. So we'll do TCP colon, and we enter the name of our SQL server, SolarWinds DB server 01. And our login, we are going to use the SA user, and we'll provide the password. If your password is incorrect, then the connection to the database is going to fail. And we go next. So when we click on next, we get to the next page. That shows that the connection to the database is successful. And you can see, if we click on this drop down, you see my existing SolarWinds Orion databases. But we are going to create a new database, and we'll give it the name SolarWinds Orion Lab. So I'll go next. You auto-populate the SA user credential wherever it's needed, and we'll just enable HTTPS, and the certificate that we use will be a self-signed certificate from the server. That is no issues, and we can just go next. So you see, we have three databases in SolarWinds. The first database is the SolarWinds Orion database that carries all the polling information, configurations, templates, dashboards, and every configuration or creation you are going to do from the SolarWinds web console will be saved on the SolarWinds Orion database. And now from the SolarWinds Orion database, we have two other databases. We have the SolarWinds log database and the SolarWinds flow storage database. So, with SolarWinds, we have log and syslog and traps monitoring. So the syslogs and traps monitoring that you collect from your network devices and other devices will be stored on the SolarWinds log database. And if you are monitoring flow traffic from your network devices, the flow traffic data will be stored on the NTA flow storage database. So with the SolarWinds Orion application, you have three databases to create or to configure. So if you want to place all your three databases on a single SQL server, then you select this first option. But if you want to place the log and event databases on separate SQL servers, then you select the second option. And this is actually a recommendation from SolarWinds that you set up the log and event monitoring database and the flow storage monitoring database on separate SQL server. This is because these databases does have a huge volume of incoming information or data in case you are utilizing syslog and traps or flow storage monitoring. So for us, we will not go with the second option, we'll go with this first option, and we click on next. So we have to create a new database for our log and event monitoring. So we'll be SolarWinds Orion lab, and we go next. And this is for the flow storage database. Uses the same SQL Server, same credentials, the SA user, and we are going to create a new database for the SQL Server for the NTA flow storage. So that will be SolarWinds storage. Okay, we are going to name it SolarWinds Flow DB. Yeah. Okay. So that'll be it, and you can go next, and next. Now this is where the configuration starts. So this will take about 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, or even more, right? So this does connect to the database, creates all the database instances that are required. SolarWinds Orion database, the flow storage database, and the log database. And it does all the database tables creation, configurations, and population of default data or information. For example, default templates, default dashboards, and everything. So this will also make sure that all your installation files are working as expected. So we'll just wait for the configuration wizard to complete, and wait for it to do all its magic. And after the configuration wizard is complete, we are going to have access to the SolarWinds web console, where we are going to create credentials for our first user, which we are going to log into the SolarWinds platform. You see now the configuration wizard says configuration wizard completed successfully. And when you have this message, you can consider your SolarWinds platform installation to be 100% complete. So now at this point, what you need to do is to access the web console and try to proceed now with the initial user setup, which is a default admin. We are going to see that. And from there, you can now log into the platform or log into the web console and proceed with your configurations, adding of your devices, and maybe any network monitoring settings or devices you want to add. You can proceed with that. So right now we are just going to click on finish, and we'll have access to the web console. Okay, https://SolarWinds Lab. So that's the SolarWinds Lab is the name of the server. When you hit enter, this will redirect you to the SolarWinds web console. And initially you'll be asked to provide credentials for the default admin. So you just provide the password. So the default username is admin. In this case, you always be using this default admin to set up further, maybe if you want to create additional users into your web console, which we are going to see later on throughout this channel. You can first log in with the default admin, and after that you can then create new users. You can then use those new users to access the web console and do further configurations. So, and also users actions on the web console will depend on how much permissions you've given them. So we'll look into permissions later on in the future. So for now, we'll just provide some credentials for the default admin. So I'll enter my credential, and I have to make sure that it matches. And after you've done putting in the credential, you can click on save and login. So when you click on save and login, this will open up the web console for you. So you can log out and log in at any time with this same user. So you see it's taking us to SolarWinds Orion discovery page, So we are going to see how the user interface for the SolarWinds web console looks like. So let's just give this about a minute. Okay, all right, nice. So you can see this is the user interface. Specifically, we are on the discovery page. The discovery page is where you can bulk add devices into your SolarWinds platform for monitoring. We are going to see all these later in the future. We will look on some SolarWinds core features, configurations, and how you can set up your devices efficiently. So at this point, we'll just go back to the summary page for the SolarWinds. So you see, this is a summary page. We have no devices yet monitored on the SolarWinds platform because this is just a newly installed SolarWinds application. So this is just how your newly installed SolarWinds application is going to look like. When you click on my dashboard, you see all the SolarWinds modules you have here for monitoring. So there are lots and lots of SolarWinds modules on the SolarWinds Observability self-hosted. And this is nice because all these modules have just one install. Like you install the Observability self-hosted and it comes with all these modules. For example, maybe your production environment might not have licenses for all the modules, but any license you activate on each module, you are going to have the module activated. But if you have the SolarWinds Observability license, which we are also going to talk about licenses, you are going to have all the modules available for you. So there are a couple of modules here. We have the logs for log analysis. We have network, which is npm, application monitoring, which is the SAM. We have server configuration, NCM, network device configuration, IPAM, and lots of them. So we will see all these modules in the future. And yes guys, so this is just a walkthrough of setting up a Windows server and also setting up SolarWinds application for your IT infrastructure monitoring. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks you guys. Please do not forget to subscribe and drop your comments if you have any. Thank you very much.